Somewhere, right now, a teenage girl is quietly slipping a pad into her bag before school, and it barely registers as a thought. It's routine, it's private, it's solved. But for most of human history, this exact moment, a girl's first period, wasn't quiet at all. In many cultures, it was loud, public, sometimes terrifying, and almost never left to her to figure out alone. So let's start at the beginning, not with a product, but with blood, and the thousands of years humans spent trying to understand what it meant. For most of human history, menstruation wasn't treated as biology. It was treated as a mystery with consequences. Nobody could explain hormones, ovulation, or the uterine lining shedding each month. What they could observe was blood appearing on a predictable cycle, tied to the moon, tied to fertility, tied to something that felt bigger than the body producing it. And when humans don't understand something powerful and repeating, they don't ignore it. They build meaning around it, whether that meaning helps or harms the person living through it. Here's what's strange. In nearly every ancient culture, independently, across continents that had zero contact with each other, menstruation was treated as something that mattered enormously. Sometimes as power, sometimes as danger, rarely as nothing at all. In many indigenous cultures across North America, a girl's first period was marked with elaborate, sometimes days-long ceremonies. Among the Apache, the sunrise ceremony transformed a girl into a woman through ritual, dance, and endurance, treating menstruation not as something to hide, but as proof of a body stepping into new power. She wasn't taught to be embarrassed. She was taught to be strong enough for what her body could now do. But that's not what happened everywhere, and this is where it gets darker. In several ancient societies, menstruating women were viewed as dangerous, even contaminating. Historical texts from ancient Rome describe menstrual blood as capable of souring wine, dulling knives, and killing crops if a woman walked too close to them. In parts of ancient Persia and later medieval Europe, menstruating women were sometimes isolated from communal spaces entirely, not for hygiene, but out of genuine fear that something invisible and powerful was radiating from their bodies. Think about that, an entire culture, organizing behavior around blood they didn't understand, treating a normal biological process as something closer to a curse. And here's the terrifying part. That fear didn't come from nowhere. Psychologists point to something deeply human at work here, the tendency to associate blood with injury, danger, or death, and then panic when it appears without a wound. Your brain is wired to treat unexplained bleeding as an emergency. For most of history, nobody could tell these women, calmly, this is not an emergency, this is your body working exactly as it should. So the fear filled the gap where explanation should have been. But somewhere underneath all of that fear and ceremony, there was still a much simpler problem to solve. What do you actually do, physically, when the blood comes? Ancient Egyptian medical texts, dating back over 3,500 years, describe women using softened papyrus, rolled and inserted, functioning almost exactly like a primitive tampon. In ancient Greece, historical accounts describe women wrapping lint around small pieces of wood for the same purpose. In Rome, wool was used the same way. Across nearly every ancient civilization, women independently arrived at some version of the same idea: take something soft and absorbent and use it. Here's what should surprise you. The tampon, something that feels distinctly modern, has origins that stretch back thousands of years. It wasn't invented once. It was reinvented, over and over, by different cultures who never spoke to each other, because the biological problem was the same everywhere, and the human mind kept arriving at a similar solution. For external protection, ancient women used what their environment gave them. In various cultures across Africa, soft plant fibers, grasses, and animal skins were folded and worn. In parts of Asia, paper and cloth were layered and washed for reuse, since nothing could be thrown away in a world with no manufacturing. In colder climates, moss was used for its natural absorbency, something modern researchers have since confirmed actually works remarkably well. And this is where everything changes. Because for the vast majority of human history, whatever method a woman used had one thing in common. It had to be reused. washed, dried, hidden. There was no such thing as disposal. Every piece of cloth, wool, or fiber had to be cleaned by hand and used again the next month, and the month after that, for her entire reproductive life. Managing a period wasn't a 5-minute task tucked into a busy day. It was ongoing physical labor, folded quietly into everything else a woman was already doing to survive. Menstrual products as we know them today, mass-produced, disposable, discreetly wrapped, didn't exist until shockingly recently. The first commercial disposable pads appeared in the late 1800s, developed almost by accident, after nurses noticed that cellulose bandage material, originally designed for battlefield wounds, worked remarkably well for menstrual absorption. Early advertisements for these products were cautious to the point of being coded, using vague language, because openly discussing menstruation in public was still considered deeply improper, even as recently as 100 years ago. The modern tampon, similar to what's used today, wasn't patented until 1929. Think about the timeline. Humans had already crossed oceans, tamed horses, built empires, and invented the wheel, thousands of years before anyone manufactured a product specifically designed to make this one basic, universal, monthly experience easier. So, here's the full picture. For nearly all of human history, a girl's first period wasn't handled by a product. It was handled by whatever her culture believed about blood, power, danger, and womanhood, and by whatever her environment could physically provide. Papyrus in Egypt, wool in Rome, moss in the north, ceremony among the Apache. Isolation in medieval villages. Different responses, built from the same unavoidable biological event, repeating in every generation, in every corner of the world, since the beginning of the species. Tonight, a girl somewhere will open a wrapped, sterile product, use it, and move on with her day without a second thought. She has no idea she's standing at the end of an unbroken chain of women, stretching back tens of thousands of years, each of them solving the exact same problem with rolled papyrus, folded wool, dried moss, or nothing but sheer, quiet endurance. The blood hasn't changed in all that time. Only what we're allowed to say about it has. And maybe that's the quiet truth in all of this. Every generation assumed their explanation was final, their fear justified, their silence necessary, yet the body underneath never asked for any of it. It simply continued, unbothered by belief, doing exactly what it was built to do. If the history hiding inside something this ordinary can be this deep, imagine what else you've never questioned. That's what Yedd is for. Like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you.